the second she said it. If you don't behave, I'll give these 4 lips to someone else. I felt something behind my eyes snap. Not loudly, not with drama, but clean, cold, final. The kind of snap that doesn't echo because it doesn't need to. You just know whatever was holding things together. It's done. Finished. Over. We were halfway through grilled burgers and some lukewarm potato salad when she let it fly. Everyone laughed. Sure. But it wasn't the kind of laughter you want at a barbecue. It was tight. Forced. That sharp, brittle chuckle people do when they're waiting for someone to say, "Just kidding," and rescue the moment. But Leanne didn't rescue anything. She sipped her wine like she'd just told the best joke of the afternoon and looked around for applause. I didn't say a word at first. I just sat there, still as stone, watching her. Then I set my beer down, carefully, so I didn't spill it, folded my napkin, and said with the quietest voice I've ever used in my life, "Then don't expect to sleep here again." Her smirk vanished like steam off a skillet. The laughter choked mid-breath. Even the guy on the corner of the deck, the one who only ever shows up for free ribs and avoids eye contact, looked over like someone had hit a mute button on the whole party. My brother-in-law's wife dropped her fork. The clang it made on the paper plate sounded like thunder. I stood, slid my chair back, and walked into the house. And that, friends, was the moment my marriage ended. No yelling, no affair uncovered, no thrown plates or screaming matches. Just one sentence, her joke, followed by mine, and a silence so deep, I swear I could hear the sprinkler system ticking in the grass. Look, I know some of you are nodding right now, men my age especially. We've all sat through the little digs, the playful swipes, the public jabs that somehow land right on your pride every time. Oh, he's useless in the kitchen. Or, if I wanted romance, I'd date someone else. And you laugh. Because what else are you going to do at someone's house, with a mouthful of chicken wings, and your wife cutting you down in front of people you see every Sunday? But this time, I didn't laugh. I didn't even blink. Because I realized something. She wasn't joking. Not really. Not deep down. That line? That wasn't a slip. That was the truth with a smirk. And I was done. By the time I closed the patio door behind me, the entire yard had fallen into an awkward, whispery hush. I could still hear them murmuring, trying to decide whether to pretend it didn't happen or ask her if she was serious. I didn't care. I didn't turn around. I walked straight into the master bedroom, opened the closet, and pulled out the black duffel I used for weekend fishing trips. Just enough for 2 days' change of clothes, phone charger, documents I'd been collecting quietly over the past year, health insurance, birth certificate, the just-in-case paperwork. She always said I was paranoid for keeping copies. Funny how the paranoid ones end up the most prepared. Here's the thing. I didn't feel rage. I didn't even feel hurt. I just felt clarity. I knew right then that if I didn't do something real, something permanent, this would keep happening until I was nothing more than a walking, breathing punchline with a mortgage. I could already picture next weekend. Another gathering, another glass of wine, another laugh at my expense, followed by a forced kiss on the cheek and some excuse about her sense of humor being too advanced for me. Not anymore. And since you've made it this far, can I ask you something? If even one part of this story hits home, if you've ever sat in silence while the person you loved made you small in front of others, do us both a favor. Hit that subscribe button and like the video. 97% of folks listening right now haven't subscribed. And yeah, that number stings more than it should. But your support? It really does motivate the team behind this story to keep going. Anyway, back to Leanne. She came inside about 10 minutes later, a confused little crease between her eyebrows like she couldn't quite figure out if I was being serious. She had that half smile she uses when she thinks I'm bluffing. "Hey, what's going on? You good?" she said, still halfway into her second glass. I didn't answer, just kept zipping up the duffel. She stepped closer, the smile starting to falter. "You're not really upset about that stupid joke, are you?" I finally looked at her then. Really looked. And what I saw wasn't evil. Wasn't cruel. Just arrogance. Entitlement. The assumption that no matter what she said, I'd laugh. I'd stay. I'd always be the one who apologizes first. She had no idea that I'd stopped playing that game a long time ago. I was just waiting for her to hand me the final excuse. Well, she handed it to me on a silver platter in front of 20 people and a half-burnt bratwurst. I picked up my bag, walked past her and said, "You should get used to silence. You're about to hear a lot of it." Then I opened the front door, stepped into the sunlight, and left. Not with anger, not with heartbreak, with peace. Cold, solid, earned peace. Because some men don't need to scream to leave a room. Some of us just go. By the time she wandered back inside, probably still tasting the punchline in her mouth, the living room was empty. My keys? Gone. The truck? Already on Highway 40, headed west. On the nightstand, I'd left nothing. No note. No apology for not pretending it was fine. No explanation for walking away. Just space, cold, unfamiliar space. The kind you can feel pressing in on you when someone's truly left. She must have noticed the closet first. Half of it empty. The duffel bag I always kept at the back, the one she called my doomsday bag, wasn't there. She once joked I packed it like a man waiting for war. I wasn't waiting anymore. The second she found my sock drawer gutted and the bathroom shelf cleared of everything but her perfume and condescending laughter, I imagined that wine haze started to burn off. Maybe she even checked the garage, thinking I'd just gone for a walk or one of those dramatic cool-off drives husbands take in sitcoms before they come crawling back with takeout and an apology. But this wasn't sitcom territory anymore. This was real life. Mine. And I'd had enough. She called around 6:42 p.m. I watched the screen light up from the motel nightstand. Her name still saved under the same contact it had been for years. Lian wife. No emoji. No pet name. Just her full name like a legal form I'd stopped updating. I let it ring. Then I turned the phone over and left it screen down. Not to punish her, but because I didn't owe her anything anymore. Not time. Not space. Not grace. I'd chosen an old roadside in 2 towns over. A place with wooden paneling, bad lighting, and the kind of silence you forget exists when you've been living inside a constant hum of sarcasm and sideways digs for years. The kind of place that doesn't ask questions. You pay cash, they give you a keycard that doesn't always work the first time, and you're left alone. I unpacked only what I needed. Set my passport in the drawer, not for escape yet, but because I'd been meaning to update it anyway. It's funny what you notice when you're no longer distracted by a wife that thinks you're furniture. The TV had 2 channels that worked. I didn't turn it on. I laid back on that scratchy polyester comforter and just listened to the absence. No dishwasher running. No podcast playing too loud from her phone. No passive-aggressive slamming of cabinets when I didn't laugh at her latest joke. Just the hum of the ceiling fan and the click of the ice machine outside every 15 minutes. I'd brought the divorce documents too. Unfiled. Unsigned. The ones I had requested 6 months ago from a lawyer friend after one of her girls' weekends ended with a wrong hotel charge on our statement and a smug little shrug from her. She called it an admin mistake. I called it a warning shot. I never filed those papers because I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd still remember how to be kind. But standing there at that barbecue, her voice slicing through the smoke and laughter with a threat disguised as flirtation, I realized something. She didn't forget how to be kind. She stopped thinking I deserved it. And that was all I needed. At 9:22 p.m., I got a text. Can you please call me? I'm really confused right now. I didn't answer. At 10:01, I'm sorry. Okay? I went too far. But it was just a joke. Don't blow this up over one stupid sentence. Still no reply. Because here's the thing. People like Lian don't apologize for what they do. They apologize for the consequences of what they do. She wasn't sorry she humiliated me. She was sorry I wasn't there to sleep beside that cold patch of mattress she'd never bothered warming up herself. I pulled out my notebook. A real one. Leather-bound. A gift from my brother back when people still wrote down thoughts that weren't meant to be tweeted. I flipped to a clean page and jotted down 3 words in capital letters. No way back. Because the truth is, I wasn't leaving her to cool off. I was leaving her because I already had. By day 3, the calls slowed. Not because she gave up, but because she realized I wasn't biting. The first 24 hours were frantic. She called 8 times before noon. 2 voicemails that started chipper and ended accusatory. One text that said, "You're scaring me." Another that said, "Grow up," like I was the one who needed to. By day 2, she shifted tones. The text started using our old pet names. "Come on, babe. Don't make this bigger than it is." Then, "You're being cold." Then, "Seriously, this is childish." Every message buzzed on my phone like a weak mosquito trying to get under the covers. I didn't swat it. I let it buzz. I let them pile up. I let her stew in her own words. I wasn't ghosting her. I was collecting the fallout. There's a difference. See, most people think walking away is about drama. Packing your things in front of her. Slamming the door. Demanding to be heard. But that's not real distance. That's theater. Real distance is silence. Deliberate, surgical silence. The kind that doesn't just cut off noise, it cuts off access. And while she paced the hallway of our now half-empty home, probably rehearsing speeches she'd never get to give, I was in a quiet motel lounge 2 towns over, laptop open, rereading the prenup she never thought I'd remember. Because here's the truth. I'd been preparing for this long before the barbecue. Back in January, after a strange credit card charge at a hotel in Asheville, a conference she claimed was postponed but never refunded, I booked a consult with a divorce attorney named Keller. Older guy, smart eyes, talked like a man who'd seen every version of betrayal dressed up in excuses. I never filed anything. Not then. But I kept his number. On day 3, I called him again. He picked up like we'd spoken last week. "You ready to stop rehearsing and start documenting?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "I think the performance ended Saturday." He laughed. Told me to come in Thursday morning. Meanwhile, Leanne was still trying to drag me back into her narrative. That evening, she posted an old photo of us on Facebook. One from a winery tour last fall. I remember that day. She was already on her 3rd tasting flight by the time we took the picture. I was holding her elbow to keep her steady, and she made some comment to the sommelier about me, always being the designated disappointment. But in the photo, we're smiling, her head tilted against mine. The kind of curated moment that gets a dozen comments from coworkers who don't know any better. She captioned it, "Still laughing together after all these years, 2 hearts." 2 hours later, her best friend Dana commented, "Such a beautiful couple. Hope everything's okay." I didn't comment, but I did screenshot it. Date, time, context. Saved to a folder on my desktop labeled, "For Keller." Because that wasn't a tribute. That was a defense. A preemptive PR move. She was trying to control the story before anyone else realized there was one. She knew people saw me leave. She knew the table had gone silent. She knew whispers had already begun. So she did what she always did. Performed. Created a version of reality where we were still the golden couple, still laughing, still playing house. But I wasn't playing anymore. And I wasn't laughing. You learn a lot in silence. Without the noise of excuses or spin, you start hearing the truth in your own head. The things you've been muting for years with rationalizations and routines. Like how she hadn't touched me in 4 months unless we were in public. Or how every compliment came with a sigh attached. Or how she talked about me in the 3rd person even when I was in the room. That night, I took out the leather notebook again. I opened to the page where I wrote "NO way back," and underneath it, I added a new line. Document. Don't defend. Because I didn't need to argue with her. I didn't need to convince her or anyone else why I was gone. All I needed was proof. And every text, every voicemail, every fake photo caption was giving it to me. She was still performing. I was already writing the credits. She must have been sitting in that plush leather salon chair, half covered in foil, thinking the world still worked the way it used to. That her little stunt at the cookout would blow over. That I'd come slinking back with an apology, maybe even a bouquet and a self-deprecating laugh. Just grateful she hadn't followed through with the 4 lips remark. She probably had her feet in a basin, scrolling through social media, already planning the next selfie caption about healing and self-love, while someone else buffed her nails, and then declined. 3 times. She tried her card for the hair color, declined. Tried it for the manicure, declined. And finally for the tip, declined. I got the notification from the bank app before she even called. Attempted charge declined, insufficient funds, joint checking. That wasn't a glitch. That was the moment leverage changed hands. By the time her name lit up my screen, I was sitting at a diner off Route 57, halfway through a turkey club. I let it ring once, twice, then picked up, just to see what her voice would sound like when the safety net snapped. "You think this is funny?" she barked. No greeting, just fury wrapped in entitlement. I took a sip of coffee. "No," I said calmly. "I think you'll enjoy paying for things with 4 lips and no wallet." She stammered. "Excuse me?" I didn't repeat it. I didn't need to. I hung up. See, what she didn't realize, what most people like her never realize, is that you don't win by shouting louder. You win by changing the terms of engagement. She had spent years making herself the star of every room. The one with the biting humor, the loudest laugh, the final word. And I had been the stagehand, just off to the side, holding the lights, smiling politely while she made a joke of me. But in private, in quiet, that's where real moves happen. 2 days before I left, I opened a new personal checking account in a bank branch she'd never bothered to learn existed. Same town. Just one she didn't know. I rerouted my direct deposit, locked down the joint savings with a freeze, and transferred enough to cover my next few months. Just enough. Not vindictive. Just strategic. The joint credit cards? Flagged for review. I didn't cancel them. No need. I just reported a potential compromise. The banks are happy to help when you say those words. You'd be shocked how fast things freeze when you mention unauthorized access. I wasn't punishing her. I was protecting myself. And Leanne? She'd spent our entire marriage managing perception. She always had to look like she had it together. Fresh cuticles? Just done highlights. Branded handbags she found on sale. Now, her salon chair might as well have been an electric one. She was locked in, foils in her hair, nothing but heat lamps and humiliation. Later that night, she left a voicemail. You froze our account? Are you actually insane? How am I supposed to pay for groceries? What am I supposed to do? Ask my mother. And there it was. She wasn't mad about the money. She was mad about the dependency, the optics, the implication that she'd need someone else, that she didn't have control. Because for people like her, appearances are everything. If she has to walk into her yoga class without fresh highlights, someone might ask if everything's okay. If her card gets declined at that overpriced market she likes to brag about, someone might wonder if her husband isn't doing so well. Except I was doing just fine. In fact, I was better than fine. I was finally breathing air that didn't come pre-filtered through her ego. She'd always called the finances our money, until she wanted to spend it. Then it was her card, her salon, her weekend. Now that the word our meant consequences. Suddenly she remembered my name again. That night I called Keller. Send the financial disclosure packet, I told him. And the property inventory list. You sure? He asked. There's still a chance she might try to. I'm sure, because this wasn't a fight anymore. It was a correction, a long overdue course adjustment. And every declined charge was a reminder. She wasn't in charge anymore. I was. By the end of the first week, I hadn't told a soul what happened, not directly. Didn't send a dramatic text to the group chat. Didn't call up my buddies from poker night and unload everything over cheap cigars and too warm beer. I didn't need to. The silence was already speaking for me. Started small. A call from Rick, wondering why I skipped Thursday poker. You all right, man? Leanne said you were just busy. But, I don't know, something felt off. I just told him, taking some time. Needed a break. He didn't press. Rick's not a genius, but he knows when a man's voice has a crack in it that doesn't come from stress. It comes from betrayal. Then Pastor Miller reached out. Said he noticed I ducked out early after service. Didn't stop for coffee like usual. We missed you, brother, he said. You always bring something steady to the room. Steady. Funny how that's what everyone always said about me. Solid. Reliable. The quiet anchor. Until the joke landed and suddenly the anchor slipped. I didn't offer explanations. Didn't rant about Leanne or play the wounded husband. I just said, appreciate the check-in. Taking a breather. But word had already started to circulate. Turns out Leanne's joke hadn't stayed neatly tucked in the backyard where she flung it. People talk. Especially when the delivery is crude enough to make even Frank, the guy who once toasted his anniversary with a fart joke, grimace into his cores. I heard later that Amy, the neighbor from across the street, whispered to someone at her book club, I can't believe she said that. I mean, in front of everyone. Then came the messages from people I didn't expect. Her sister, Valerie, sharp-tongued, always on Leanne's side no matter what, texted me out of the blue. Look, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I just want to say you didn't deserve that. We all saw it. She crossed a line. That one stopped me cold. Valerie never takes anyone's side but Leanne's. For her to break rank? That meant something had cracked deeper than I thought. Another message came from Adam, a guy from church who I'd barely spoken to outside of men's breakfasts. I saw what happened at the barbecue. I didn't laugh. Didn't feel right. Just wanted you to know someone noticed. I didn't reply to most of them. Not because I didn't appreciate it, but because I wanted the silence to grow. Let it stretch like a shadow. Let it make her wonder. Leanne always assumed she controlled the story. She'd been the social nucleus of every room we entered. Smiles, banter, witty jabs, just enough fake humility to sound gracious. And for years I'd let her play that role. I stood beside her like a weathered statue, the dependable prop. Now, she was walking into rooms alone. I don't know when exactly it happened, but somewhere between the salon meltdown and my sudden absence, the current shifted. People weren't laughing at her punchlines anymore. They were watching her, listening more closely, noticing how her voice sharpened when someone disagreed, how her compliments came with barbs, how she needed attention like oxygen. And without me nearby to absorb her swings, she had to start swinging at herself. I imagine the church ladies started exchanging glances when she made too many jokes about finally enjoying the house without a grump in it. I imagine someone asked, too sweetly, "Is everything all right between you two?" And Leanne, never one to admit fault, probably gave one of her patented chuckles and said, "Oh, he's just being dramatic." But it didn't land like it used to, because when the reliable man goes quiet, people notice. And now, everywhere she turned, she was met with hesitation. Not accusation, just something colder, something worse, doubt. By week's end, she posted another photo, this one of her on the porch, holding a glass of wine, captioned, "Rediscovering peace in solitude dizzy #self-care #healing journey." No likes, no comments. I took a screenshot, not because I cared, because it was proof. She wasn't talking to anyone. She was screaming into a void, and no one was echoing back. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday, certified mail, signature required. She'd have to physically sign for it, hold it in her hands, scribble her name, and feel the weight of consequences for the very first time in her life. I imagined the moment with a kind of clinical detachment. Her stepping onto the porch barefoot, maybe still in a robe, hair twisted up, eyes puffy from pretending not to cry. The mail carrier saying, "Need you to sign here." Her squinting at the return address. My name. I didn't send it to be cruel. I sent it to be clear. The envelope wasn't thick. Just 3 pieces of paper. But paper can be heavy when it's soaked in finality. Inside was a cover letter from Keller's office. Polite, precise, and very, very real. Then came the property disclosure. Every asset, listed line by line. Joint and separate. Values attached. A simple highlight showed what I was offering, and what I wasn't. And finally, a signed copy of the separation agreement draft. It didn't scream. It didn't accuse. It simply declared. The clause about the cabin was on page 2. Bottom right corner. Section 7. Subsection B. Primary residence in Blue Hollow to remain sole property of the petitioner, per mortgage record and deed. No transfer or buyout to respondent applicable. That cabin was her crown jewel. Not the house we lived in. Not the 2-story in town with the kitchen she barely cooked in and the walk-in closet she treated like a showroom. No, the cabin, that was her little kingdom. She'd spent years turning it into her personal retreat. Boho lighting, ridiculous throw pillows, that overpriced wine fridge she'd insisted on even though she barely knew the difference between Malbec and Merlot. Her Instagram was filled with that place. Sunset selfies, coffee mugs on the porch, pseudo-poetic captions like, "Where the soul exhales." She loved that cabin, but she didn't own it. I did. She'd never checked the deed. Never noticed whose name was on the mortgage. She assumed, like she always did, that we owned it. Nope. I did. And now she'd read it in black and white. The car? Sure. She could keep it. Even though it was in my name, too. It meant something to her, and taking it would have made me look vindictive. I wasn't interested in petty. I was interested in precision. An hour after the envelope was signed for, my phone buzzed with a message. This is insane. It was a joke. I stared at the screen. No greeting. No remorse. Just that same weaponized confusion like reality had done something to her. I typed back one line. "So is this." Then I silenced the thread and archived it. She didn't reply again, because by then I think it finally landed. Not just what I was doing, but how much I'd already done. This wasn't me sulking at a hotel. This was a man with a lawyer, a plan, and a paper trail. She couldn't laugh her way out of this one. The next day I heard from Keller. She called, he said, flat voice, tried the emotional angle, and she asked if we could talk about the tone of the documents. I told her legal doesn't do tone. I smiled into the phone. Good. Want to escalate to filing? He asked. Not yet, I said. Let her sit with it. Because panic isn't just fear. It's realizing the show's over and the audience left without clapping. And Leanne? She was finally alone on the stage. She showed up just after 9 a.m. The woman at the front desk knocked on my door with a nervous kind of smile, like she'd just seen a ghost and wasn't sure if she should say its name aloud. "There's someone here for you," she said. I knew before she finished. Leanne. I opened the door and looked past her toward the lobby. There she was, standing like a misplaced chandelier in a room full of ceiling fans. Sunglasses too big for her face. Hair pulled back in a bun that said, "Put together," but makeup that screamed, "Barely held." She didn't speak right away, just took the glasses off and looked at me like I was supposed to fill in the silence. "Can we talk?" she asked finally, voice just above a whisper. I held the door for a beat too long, then stepped aside. Let her in, but not like before. This wasn't a come-home moment. This was observation, like watching a moth finally realize the glass isn't the way out. She sat at the little table near the window, hands clasped in her lap like a teenager called into the principal's office. "I've been trying to reach you," she said, staring at the floor. "I've been losing my mind." "You're late," I said. She looked up, confused. "I figured you'd show up by day 4. You held out till day 10. Progress." She didn't smile. "I miss you," she said quickly, like it might hurt less if she said it fast. I tilted my head. "You miss what exactly? My paycheck? My tools? Or the target you used to mock?" That made her flinch. She blinked fast, tears welling but not falling. "It was just a joke." "No, it wasn't," I replied flatly. "It was," she insisted. "I was nervous. I drank too much. You know I say dumb things when I'm trying to be funny. Then you should have rehearsed the apology like you rehearsed the punchline." Her face twisted, confused, offended, maybe both. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you've had years to practice how to embarrass me in public. Maybe you should have spent one afternoon learning how to own it in private." Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. I waited. She sniffed. "I didn't know it would go this far." "That's because you never thought I'd leave." Silence again. She glanced around the motel room. Bland curtains, beige carpet, one chair out of place. It didn't match her world. No curated candles. No monogrammed towels. Just walls that didn't echo her voice the way the house did. I felt so alone. I raised an eyebrow. "Now imagine feeling that way while living with the person who's supposed to love you." She swallowed hard. "I made one mistake." I let that hang in the air a second. "One mistake," I said finally. "You made decades of little ones. That line at the cookout? That wasn't a lightning strike. That was just the final fuse burning out." She buried her face in her hands. "I don't know how to fix this." "That's the first honest thing you've said." I stood, walked to the little dresser, picked up the envelope from Keller's office that had arrived the night before, quietly slid it across the table toward her. She looked at it like it was a bomb. "You don't have to sign it yet," I said. "Just read it." She didn't move. After a long pause, she whispered, "What if I don't want this to end?" I looked her dead in the eye. "Then you should have treated me like something worth keeping. Not a stage prop for your next comedy bit." Her hands trembled. Her mouth opened again, searching for the next excuse, the next punchline, the next manipulation. But this time, she didn't have one, because this wasn't our reality anymore. It was mine. Came just after midnight. One of those late-night texts you instantly know isn't a drunk message or a pocket dial. It's intentional, loaded, the kind of thing that starts with, "Hey, I wasn't going to get involved," but, and ends with your blood running colder than the room around you. It was from Joel, a guy I'd known for years. We weren't best friends, but close enough that we'd shared more than a few poker nights, church volunteering gigs, and casual beers at the cabin. He was at the cookout, saw everything. He hadn't said much that day, just gave me a quiet, sympathetic glance when I walked off and never followed. Now he was reaching out. "Hey man, you should know. She's been talking." I didn't respond, just watched the 3 dots dance across the screen. "Telling people you're just having a midlife tantrum. That you stormed off because she was finally calling you out for always being distant. Says you've been cold for years, and the joke was you taking it too seriously like usual. Then, I figured you'd want to see this." Attached were screenshots. A group chat I recognized, some of the wives, a few mutual friends. Leanne had dropped in with a casual, "Let's all just remember Grant's been spiraling for a while now." That barbecue moment? Honestly, I was trying to lighten the mood. Someone responded, "Yikes." Sounded rough. Another, He really left over a joke? Leanne again. He's fragile right now. Work's been hard, aging is hard. It's probably just a phase. He'll be back once he realizes no one else is gonna put up with him. I didn't feel rage. That's the sick part. I felt confirmation. She wasn't sorry. She was spinning the narrative. She wasn't mourning the relationship. She was trying to salvage her reputation. That night, I sat up in bed at the motel, staring at the ceiling fan as it ticked like a metronome for her unraveling credibility. She didn't care that I was gone. She cared that I might look good doing it. She wanted to control the story. I was busy writing the ending. First thing I did was open the laptop and pull up my living will. It had been sitting in digital limbo for years. One of those get-to-it-eventually files I'd put off during the better parts of the marriage when I assumed she'd be the one making decisions if something happened to me. I removed her name as medical proxy, removed her as my power of attorney, replaced her with Keller, my attorney, and my cousin Nathan. Retired Air Force, clean head on his shoulders, no tolerance for drama. Then I dug out the contact sheet I'd left with my health insurance plan, removed her as my emergency contact, put down the INS number instead, temporarily. I changed it to my new address once I settled. She wouldn't even get a call if I crashed my truck into a tree. No sobbing at my hospital bed. No whispering apologies to a man in a coma just so she could feel forgiven. She'd be informed, not involved. When I saved the updated file, I sat back, staring at the screen, and whispered to the dark room, "Midlife tantrum, huh?" And maybe it was. Maybe this was my tantrum. But if so, it was the quietest, most well-documented, strategically layered tantrum she'd ever seen. One that ended with paperwork, notarized signatures, and her name methodically erased from every part of my future. Funny how that works. One joke at a barbecue, and now she was just a memory with access revoked. She thought her voice in a group chat would write the history. She forgot I kept the receipts. She asked for dinner like it was a truce. Neutral ground, she said. Just to talk. Not to beg, her message read, though I could already hear the strain in her carefully chosen words. I picked the place. Quiet, out of town. The kind of dimly lit restaurant where no one knew us. Where the walls didn't carry echoes of past conversations or neighbors who'd turn their heads. Place stripped of history. No advantages. She arrived 7 minutes early, dressed in the same outfit she wore the night of the barbecue. Same white off-shoulder blouse, same silver earrings I bought her 3 anniversaries ago. Forgotten until now. I don't know if it was intentional or just muscle memory from a woman trying to recreate a scene she thought she could control. Either way, it felt like a ghost walking in. I stood out of habit when she approached the table. She smiled, small, rehearsed, nervous. "I didn't think you'd actually come," she said. I shrugged. Neither did I. We sat. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was full of every moment that had gone unspoken. Every word we'd swallowed. Every look that used to say something but now said absolutely nothing. The waiter came. She ordered wine. I asked for water. Neither of us touched the menus. She started slow, casual at first. Said she'd been doing a lot of thinking. That it had all gotten too big, too fast. That maybe we both let it go too far. Then came the tears. Real ones? Maybe. But I didn't flinch. "I just miss us," she said, dabbing her eyes with the edge of her napkin like a scene from a sad little play. "I miss your steadiness. I miss not feeling like I have to prove anything all the time." I took a sip of water. She leaned in. "I was stupid. That joke, it wasn't even about you. I was just trying to be funny. Trying to fit in." I nodded slowly. And it landed exactly how it was supposed to. She blinked, unsure if it was sarcasm or sincerity. It didn't matter. I didn't offer either. "I lost myself somewhere," she whispered. "Maybe I thought putting you down would lift me up. You thought wrong." She nodded, eyes down. Her voice shrank to a whisper. "I wish I could take it back." I reached into the inside pocket of my coat and pulled out the folded napkin. Placed it on the table gently like a final offering. She looked at it, confused at first, then opened it. It read, "Some jokes break things. Some silences fix them. You chose yours. I chose mine." She stared at it for a long time, mouth slightly open, eyes blinking like she was trying to refocus the moment, reset the scene. But there was no reset, no encore. I stood. She started to say something. I saw it forming in her throat, but nothing came. No sound, just breath and regret. I pushed my untouched plate gently forward. You can have mine. You've always had the last word anyway. Then I left the bill where it sat. Walked past the table, past the window, out into the parking lot, where the night air hit colder than expected. I didn't look back. Didn't check the mirror when I drove off. That was the last time we ever sat across from each other. And she never told another joke in my name again. It happened exactly 32 days after that final dinner. I remember because it was the first morning I woke up in the cabin and didn't think about her before coffee. The light came in through the east window just right, the kind of soft gold that makes the wood floors glow. I was barefoot, shirt half-buttoned, coffee in hand, sanding the edge of the porch railing where the varnish had started to peel from years of weather and neglect. Something she always said she'd get a guy to fix. That's when the notification came in from the gate camera. Motion detected. Black SUV. Plate number I knew by heart. Leanne. She hadn't called ahead. Not that she had any right to. But there she was, sitting just outside the wrought iron gate, engine running, staring up at the new keypad like it had betrayed her. She tried the old code. The one we picked together back when things still had shared meaning. The first 4 digits of our wedding date, plus the 2 numbers she wore during high school volleyball. That keypad had opened for her 100 times. Not anymore. She tried again. Wrong code. The 3rd time. System locked. Temporary block activated. I watched it all from the kitchen tablet while my coffee cooled beside me. She called. I watched the screen flash her name. Then I tapped decline. Simple. Quiet. Final. I let her sit there for a while. Let her wrestle with the engine noise and the realization that the world had truly, finally moved on without her permission. Then she backed out. Slow, hesitant, like she still half expected me to run out barefoot and stop her. I didn't. Later that afternoon, I walked the half-mile down to the old mailbox by the road, where I'd already prepared a pre-stamped envelope weeks ago. I slipped it in with the morning drop. No key. No entry. Not anymore. That was it. 8 words. No signature. No address. Just that. Typed. Printed. Clean. 2 days later, she posted a photo on social media. A blurry, overly filtered selfie in her car. Eyes puffy. Fake smile on. You could just make out the edge of the gate in the background if you looked close enough. Caption. Fought for what we had. Some battles are just one-sided. No location tagged. Comments turned off. No likes. I read it once. Then deleted the screenshot. Not because I didn't want the memory, but because it wasn't my memory anymore. It was her performance. Her final, desperate spin of a story no one was buying. A final act to an audience that had already filed out of the theater. I didn't need to prove anything. Not to her. Not to anyone. I had the cabin. The keys. The quiet. I had the wood under my feet. The hum of cicadas in the trees. And the sound of varnish being scraped from truth. That afternoon, I finished sanding the railing. Wiped my hands on a rag. Poured another cup of coffee. Sat down in the Adirondack chair she used to complain, looked too rustic. And finally I exhaled. Not in relief. Not in regret. But in full ownership of the silence she thought she could fill with noise forever. She had her joke. I had the punchline. And I wrote the ending.